understanding and participation in the activity of art as an autonomous and freedom seeking as well as an anarchist kind of position would be totally justified. But I think that the privilege of this position being somewhere offered, whether as a gift or as a imparting or a gift of voice even, assumes such an us and them that seems extremely difficult to take.
Oh. Yeah, but may I I also think that if you look at it from the point of view of anthropology of activism, there is a whole history of doublespeak in the space of the gift. It is the idea of the gift is really about as much an act of performance as it is an act of exchange. I mean, this is the
but I thought the gift is not of exchange. The gift is outside of the exchange system.
There are two. I mean, there is a commodity exchange and the gift exchange. So, in that sense, the gift is very much part of exchanges, but through the basis of reciprocity.
Reciprocity. That's what.
But the thing is that there is also a huge history in the way in which we have defined activism, where the notion of the community has become almost fetish.
And
the fact is that agency, in terms of, we all know that how the individual space has been completely subsumed very often because it seemed to be almost immediately part of an ideological space. So there's a tension between an individual act, right, and sometimes framing the individual act with the desire to individually participate in any kind of communitarian space as problematic. And then, so if you look at the point, the history of activism itself is full of tension, is full of doublespeak around the idea of the gift, and one major consequence of that is often just sort of creating more blockages in flows of exchange. In terms of the fact that you may often find that the activist often does not allow for any other voice to enter. In Dharavi, for example, that's a very typical thing. The activist speaks for the community. The activist, in fact, has become almost authoritarian in his or her understanding of what somebody else's contribution can be to that space. So the moment you are from the world of academics or from the world of art, from the world, then you have to completely become subservient to a certain voice on the basis of the community. Now, in that sense, I do believe that if you look at the idea of the gift as reciprocity, and it
that's what I started with.
Exactly. Then there is no. I do not necessarily see a contradiction in the way in which in the way in which Professor Safran may participate in that space, because it is true that the activist in Dharavi pretends as if there is a voice in the community. The fact is that the voice of the various communities in Dharavi are silenced in very complex ways, half the time from the activists themselves.
Yes, that's correct.
So in that sense, a workshop space like this and the presence of people who define themselves as sort of still in the process of making, allowing for conceptual openness is very urgent. For us, that's very important, because the biggest sort of problem in the history of activism in a city like Mumbai, particularly around the area of housing, is really the most reified and fetishized notions of the poor, of who in presenting them as victims. And that is something that for us, the workshop itself is a paradigm shift in the space of activism in, say, the housing issue in Bombay. That is the way I would say, we could sort of, in a sense, speak to each other, given that given that history, which is, and Bombay, and not only Bombay, almost every other place, Delhi itself, a little understanding of what is happening in Khirki clearly locates the whole issue in the area of conceived, the whole idea of Delhi, looking at Delhi as an urban system rather than a city. Again, from the point of view of Anthony Leeds talks about the need to reject the notion of the rural altogether, because the whole idea is that urban spaces spread way beyond the boundaries of the city. And it makes total sense when you look at the history of Delhi. So for us, the biggest problem has been the vocabulary of the city itself in Delhi. And you can see the repercussion of that in Khirki very clearly. The moment you talk about the city, then you create a whole subset of concepts and ideas, the unauthorized city, the authorized city, and all these are part of categories which are highly problematic. So the workshop opens up those possibilities. So it's only in that sense maybe we need to also sort of, I don't know.
You wanted to speak.
Yeah, I was just trying to see that, or trying to re-characterize what you were saying about gift. And what Rahul was also saying throughout, in my mind, an image that this violence or this difficulty with gift arises because the giver and the receiver are like, the giver is like standing on, we're both standing on one side of the stream. I have a boat, so I gift the receiver, so I'll take you across to the other side. I have a boat. However, and then there is this violence, and then there is a problem that I have a boat and I'm going to take you across, I'm going to give you a gift. However, if you consider it another way, then I make a bridge. You see, then my ownership of the boat, which takes you across, is gone. And I believe that all the, the way that you are also trying to present is that of the builder of the bridges. I'm reminded of a story. I was going down the pavilion which is the Raslila in Bundi with Mick Jagger, whom I'm trying to persuade to take the palace and turn it into an art center. And he came all the way. And I promise you, this is not so long ago. And we were going down this pavilion, it's looked after by the ASI. And there was a chap who was sort of became a guide and he was explaining. And this man, of course, didn't recognize me. And at the end of, sort of three-quarters of the way through the pavilion, it's not a big pavilion, he asked him, "Sir, what do you do?" And without batting an eyelid, without an instant's delay, he said, "I'm a bridge builder." Yes. He's an intelligent guy, in any position. That's it. And the man was perfectly satisfied. The answer was, like when you ask a question or you give an answer and it's repeated by a question, followed by a question, you failed. There was no question after that. He carried on looking at the Raslila, these wonderful paintings, the best, I believe, in Mughal miniatures in the country.
I think, I think the way you mentioned about Corbusier and the gift and described his transformation, actually he gifted Corbusier gifted Chandigarh to himself. Chandigarh he gifted to himself as a new creative thing, which every artist, when they create something new, and that was almost central in a sense to him, and that what he gifted to the people of Punjab was almost secondary. Maybe I'm saying.
But why? I mean, don't you think that he could not give what he gave to the Punjab if he did not give it to himself?
Yes, I think
so in
all
that
artists
sense,
do that.
I agree with you, absolutely. When an artist does what he does, above all, he does what he does because he wants to do what he does. And then other people, if they are fortunate enough, they can share it. Perhaps. Not always.
Hypothetically, if Corbusier had come to Chandigarh and built in the same style as he had been building in Paris and France before, would that still be a gift?
I don't think so. I think that would be
not to himself, but would that be a gift to the city?
It won't be a gift to himself and not to the city if he did what he said he could have done. That's exactly the mediocrity that is